the know, nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Yeah, it's more about things we do good, things we didn't do well. It's about tendencies. Why we haven't been as good coming out of the second half. What can we change there? Things like that.
And welcome into Purple Access. As always, Zolgad, Star Tribune sports columnist, and my good buddy Chip Scoggins, executive producer extraordinaire Declan Goff, brought to you by our friends, at least Chip and I, our good friends at Surly Brewing Company, and also by TCL TV. If you're not enjoying football on a TCL, you're doing it wrong. TCL is the place to watch all of your sporting events and everything else because they do television right. All right, Chip Scoggins, the bye is done. The Vikings are 3-3, and we now are setting off on a journey of at least a 4-game stretch that's going to be an incredibly telling stretch of games. What does your gut tell you about the Vikings going into Sunday night's game against the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't know. I don't know what this team is yet, Judd. I think they are getting better defensively. But there's been enough, I don't know if it's hiccups or inconsistency, whatever you want to call it, to say, I don't know what we're going to see. I think you're facing this 4-game stretch where you're facing 4 playoff teams, right?
Yeah.
For the I wouldn't say the highest scoring offenses because the Vikings are ahead of some of them, but 4 really good quarterbacks. So I think we're going to have a better idea by Thanksgiving, we're going to know what this team is. Are they a playoff team? Are they a team that's just inconsistent, that shows some flashes of good, flashes of bad? And so it'll be really interesting to see, Mike Zimmer there in the clip coming in was talking about the self-scout that the coaches did during the bye. And he talked about a little bit yesterday when I was out there about, and Cousins addressed it too, like, are you prepared for shootouts? And Cousins said, you know what? We got to be prepared for everything. I mean, you can't go into a game thinking it's going to be a certain way. You got to be able to adjust. And so I think we're going to see probably 4 high-scoring games. I just don't know that their defense is going to shut down any of these offenses.
All right, that's a really interesting topic of discussion. Do you think that, most importantly, Mike Zimmer is prepared for shootouts? Because I do believe that for the Vikings too. So if we get to Thanksgiving and say, man, this team's really pretty good. Like they got off to a rocky start, but they're pretty good. I do believe that they're going to have the willingness to engage in high scoring games. Do you think the head coach has the stomach and the ability to make the pivot to that and accept it?
I don't think he would like it. I think he would probably suffer through it, but I also think he probably understands, hey, you got to do what you got to do to win. And I don't think he would go into a game saying, okay, let's air it out. Let's match him score for score. We're going to give up points. I don't think he's ever going to do that. I mean, I think he thinks the way his defense is playing now with the pass rush. It's interesting. We were talking about their stats, Judd. So they're defensively number 1 in sacks, number 1 in third down defense. And Andre Patterson said yesterday, 2nd or 3rd in pressures, overall pressures. So their defensive line is actually doing what they thought they would do. But run defense, 26th in run defense, and red zone defense, 24th. And Andre Patterson said that's been the one that's kind of been the most surprising, is that typically they've been pretty good about keeping teams to field goals, and even if you give some yards, not letting them score touchdowns. But I think they're 24th in red zone defense, so they're giving up touchdowns here. And so it's been kind of a mixed bag with the defense. And so I think, they are getting pressure. They're creating sacks. They're making it hard on quarterbacks, but they haven't been good against the run. And so that's the thing that now in the next 2 weeks, Dallas and Baltimore, you're facing 2 of the top 4 rushing offenses. And so if they can't stop that, and both those teams can run, and then you can add, everything else to pass and all that. Here's my mom calling me on my birthday. Sorry.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jay.
Yeah, I'll call her back. I'll call her back. Then it is going to be a shootout, Judd. But I don't think Zimmer is looking at it that way.
I think so. I think you're right for sure. The interesting thing to me about it is this. I don't think this and the stats that you went through back this up. This defense is definitely not a train wreck. Like, it's not terrible.
No.
It definitely has some deficiencies, and it's not, and we aren't in 2017. But that being said, like, I don't think this would have to be Mike saying, okay, the defense stinks. It's just, I thought it was going to be good, because it doesn't. It does some good things. It also has some problems. But I do think it's going to take a change in the thought process to a certain point to embrace what could make this team successful, which is to, and I think we talked about this during the bye last week, which is to lean into what this offense does well, because the offense can be special. So like it's a very fine line we're talking about here. About, it's not saying, well, the defense stinks and we're going to have to score 50 points. It's a fine line between saying, realistically, Chipper, I think this defense is probably, in fairness, just outside of like top 10. So, it's probably like 11th or 12th, but the offense has the potential to be top 5. And can you accept that? And can you embrace that to get everything that you can from both sides of the football?
Well, yeah, I looked at yesterday. They're 10th in scoring defense, 14th in scoring offense, which I would have guessed it would have been the other way around, right? You'd think the offense would be higher than, and it should be, Judd.
It should be. Correct.
And I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's like, there's no way that this team should be an average scoring offense. And so I think a lot of that goes back to just what the philosophy has been in a couple of games. Just, okay, real conservative, into halves, you're not going for it. You're just content to run it out instead of trying to get more points. And so that's where I think in those situations where if you have a lead, try to extend it. Don't just play it safe, because you're facing offenses that are going to be able to score a lot of points. And so it's the approach in that I don't think you can play it conservatively or safe against these next 4 teams, because they're going to score points, and it.
So here's the weird thing about the discussion, and I'm with you on, I don't really know this team yet. Like, it's been a weird team, and I don't really know them yet. The weirdest thing about that statement, though, is, and I don't remember the last time I felt like this about a team across the board. I feel like I don't know what the coaching staff is going to do. I actually think I know the personnel. Like, I know what guys are capable of. So it's not like, man, if they were only getting a lot more from player X, Y, and Z, I think I know what those guys can do. The most important thing that I'm curious to see starting on Sunday night is not what the self-scout did as far as personnel. It's what the self-scout did as far as potentially changing the thought process of the coaching staff to maximize what they can get from guys who I think I know what they can do.
Yeah, well, that's 100%. And, players don't call plays. They're not, they don't determine what they're going to do at the end of halves or how they're going to handle game situation. They just run the plays that are called. And so you're right. But I don't think, Zimmer mentioned they study tendencies and why haven't they been good coming out of halftime? Well, I think a lot of people would say, don't run on second long. There's a tendency. I mean, change that up. But are they willing to realize that that's not working, or is Zimmer going to say, just stick with it because this is who we are, this is our identity? I tend to think it's going to be more of that than a fundamental. But I agree with you, John. I don't think that that's going to. I don't think that you can be conservative and ball control and think that lean on Dalvin, because some of these offenses that they're going to face are going to be quick strikes. Yep. And so you're going to have to be able to adjust.
Yes.
You just are.
Yep. And if Mike sticks with that, so if Mike's like, damn it, these are my principles. I love defense. Our offense is good, but they're going to work within the confines of making the defense as successful as possible, Chip. I think that is a recipe for him being fired. I really do. I think this is going to be so telling, because because the one way Mike keeps his job, I think, is if he does adjust. And if he says, okay, you know what, flexibility from my chair is the most important thing. I think he's got a chance to save his job. And by the way, to get the most from a team that I think is pretty good. So I am just so curious to see, because that's so difficult for him if he can make that step.
Yeah. And how much is that predicated too on the defense being really good the next 4 weeks? So if it's good and, and they're able to limit these offenses, I think Mike's going to stay true to who he is. It's if they give up a lot of points, and then you have to, if he's still trying to stay true to what he is, and it's, no, you got to get in the shootout here. You're going to have to open it up and let Kirk kind of throw it around. That's where the conflict's going to come, right? And
yeah.
I'm curious to see, I wrote about this today, Judd, that they brought in 8 guys on defense this offseason. Then you get Hunter, Barr, and who else? Oh, Pierce back. And Pierce, he didn't practice yesterday, so I'm not sure that's, he's going to be available for this week. But, hey, this stretch is why you did this.
Uh-huh.
You put a lot of money and a lot of roster management into your defense. Well, here you go. It's time for that to pay dividends. And so they need to – this is why they did it, for offenses like this and for stretches like this, to be a high-level defense. And they're 10th in scoring defense. Let's see how they manage against, these kind of quarterbacks and these kind of offenses.
Yeah, I think the potential fly in the ointment here is Patrick Peterson being out, because he has been, I think, really, really good. And he's a professional, and he stabilizes things back there. And now he's gone. And I think Dantzler can play, but that's a big leap from inactive in week 1 to starting now, when you're going to run a gauntlet that's going to go Dak, Lamar, who, by the way, can throw like this whole thing. He can't throw. He can throw.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert on the road. And then, let's finish this 4-game stretch up against Aaron Rodgers. So that's the one where I think internally you have to accept things might not go as well as we hoped defensively. But my answer to that is that's why you have this offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it exists.
Yeah, exactly. And Andre Patterson said it yesterday. He's like, you're not going to shut down. He was just talking about the Cowboys specifically, but you might as well be saying the other 3. But you're not just going to shut down this offense. Too much talent. And so what their thing is, don't give up the big explosive plays that are touchdowns, right? I mean, don't give up the 60-yard.
Right, but that might be tougher now.
It might be harder, for sure, because you're losing your. I mean, you're facing the highest scoring offense in the NFL without your best cornerback. Right. I mean, so that's so it obviously is going to make it harder. But you're right. And the thing is, I think this offense is ready to. I don't know if they can match score to score with the best offense, but I mean, use your weapons and find out. I mean, it would be interesting if they just said, you know what, we're coming out slinging it against the Cowboys. And I mean, it'd be a heck of a lot of fun, but just to say, you know what, we're not going to shy away from that type of game, and we're going to throw it to Jefferson and because I know Diggs has a lot of interceptions, but that Dallas Cowboys defense was terrible last year. And I know they have a new coordinator and some new faces and all that. So I don't think you have to be afraid to be aggressive against them.
No. And so if I am Jefferson, the one thing that I would come back from the bye saying is this. If anybody watched the Bengals play the Ravens on Sunday, Jamar Chase is really good. Yep. But he is not like clearly the superior receiver to JJ. Like they're both really good. They were teammates. They're both great. What I saw from Joe Burrow, the Bengals offense, and the way that Jamar Chase is being used. If I'm Jefferson, I come back and I throw that VCR tape, that beta tape, that DVR, I don't know what it is. And I say, this is what we should be doing with me. Now he wouldn't, but but Kirk Cousins is having a great year. Kirk Cousins has arm talent. He especially has arm talent deep. Like he is we have never questioned, for all that we've questioned Kirk, The deep ball is not something where we've said, yeah, he's not that great. No, he's good at that. If you watch the trust that the Bengals put in Burrow, who, by the way, threw a bad pick in the end zone because of that trust, and the way that Jamar Chase is being used, don't come back and say, well, Justin Jefferson was covered. Detroit went to a Tampa 2, or Trayvon Diggs. Are you kidding? We can't throw at him. Don't tell me that. Watch Jamar Chase, watch Burrow, and there is no reason on God's green earth that Cousins and Jefferson can't be asked to replicate that with the same trust.
Yeah, and I mean, we've used their offensive line for how long as an excuse? Well, he has no time, and they can't let Rouse develop and all that. Judd, they've only given up, 9 sacks? No sacks last week or before the bye against Carolina.
They're tied with Dallas, and Dallas is considered to have a great offensive line.
The best offensive, yeah. I mean, we looked at Pro Football Focus yesterday. Cowboys were the number 1 run blocking, number 4 pass blocking.
Okay.
And so, I mean, they've given up nine sacks. So, I mean, the protection has not – and Zimmer said it's a combination of 3 things. The line's been better. Cousins is definitely getting the ball out of his hands faster.
Yep.
And then they've adjusted some schemes. He said early in the year they have like tight ends blocking it. Yeah.
Or is it Kirk? Or the offensive line. They're calling you to wish you happy birthday.
Happy birthday. By the way, it's your 50th. Let's pause the show. Let's pause the show. In fact, you know what? Let's pause this show for a second so I can extend you a birthday present, because I know that Chip Scoggins would love a present. Surly Furious IPA. It sponsors this show. You know, let's cut to the chase. It sponsors my life and Chip's life too, because after work, when you're thinking to yourself, I need a nice, refreshing beer, Surly Furious IPA. Chip Scoggins, happy 50th. In fact, I will extend this to you virtually through the screen. Thank you very much. I want you to have my standing can of Surly.
Well, I can promise you that there will be multiple Furiouses consumed later tonight after my birthday dinner. So
I'd love to hear that. And 50, man, your life is just starting. Things start to hurt more. I will tell you that.
That's right. Yeah.
But your life is just starting.
Yeah. Thank you. No, so I don't think the protection, I'm not saying they're perfect. And I'm not saying they're a Dallas Cowboys line, but they've shown with Darisaw in there that I think if that was anything that was holding, giving them reservations.
Yep.
I think, I'm not saying it's the line's fixed, but I think they can be more aggressive. And I think Cousins, the way he's playing right now and with those wide receivers, and you have a third wide receiver now, I would air it out. And I understand you have this just unbelievably talented running back, and it is Zimmer's philosophy, we got to run the ball. But I've said I've come around to this side and thinking to the belief that this should be Kirk's offense and the passing game's offense, and then not supplement, but it doesn't have to be so Dalvin heavy.
Right. Which is what? Cut him back from 30 carries per game
to 22.
Yeah. So it's not like you're eliminating him. It's just that you've got components now that you didn't have previously across the board. And if Kirk's going to play this way, you have to start to trust him more. Like until he proves he can't do it, and then you can scale it back again. Yeah. But Dalvin Cook doesn't need to carry the ball 30 times. He just doesn't. Most guys don't. 2021. Derrick Henry can, because he's a freak.
And he's
a physical freak, but he also rarely gets hurt. Like Dalvin gets hurt.
And that's the thing. We've already seen Dalvin injured this year, and he said the bye was great for him. But this is, how many games down the road you're going to have to play. You add on one with the 17th game this year. And so they're going to have to manage him down the stretch here. So you don't just run him into the ground. He has nothing left if you do get to the playoffs.
I made that point before too, and I agree completely with you, but do you think they will? Because the Carolina game, he was clearly not cutting great. Like, he still had a great game, but it very obviously hurt him to put that foot in the ground, which is not surprising with a sprained ankle. And they didn't scale it back. Because I've been saying the same thing. Like, if nothing else, keep him, because if he's out, the run game's still good, but his threat is gone. And his threat means a lot. Like, I am not, if I'm the Vikings offensively, I am not forfeiting the right to have the threat of Cook, by saying, well, we got 33 carries against the Panthers or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't the same, and I assume the bye really helped. But no, I don't think they'll change just because Alexander Madison is, when he gets in there, he does a good job, but he's not Dalvin, right? Nope. I mean, he doesn't have that explosiveness, even though we've seen some big runs from him.
Yep.
So I think they just get in the game, and in the heat of the moment and all this going on, you go with who you trust. I mean, it's just how coaches are. They're not thinking about, okay, I guarantee you, if you stop Zimmer in the early fourth quarter and ask him how many carries Dalvin has, he wouldn't have any clue. So it's, I don't know that they're tracking that, and so it's, hey, we're trying to win a freaking game,
Right. But that's also in today's world sort of a problem. Like, I agree you shouldn't be obsessed, but you should have an idea of game flow. And I think you're correct, but I'd prefer that you have an idea of, okay, you know what? He's a 22 carries or something like that. And we've got Thielen, Jefferson, Osborne, Conklin to a certain point. So it's not like you don't have, what intrigues me about this offense in particular, Chipper, is the fact that for the first time in a long, long time, you've got 3 viable receiving threats. You haven't had that for, and if Westbrook can play, you got 4 guys that can catch the ball.
You know what, Judd, if you had the same group, same offense, and an offensive head coach, how do you think it would look?
Oh, completely different. Completely different. And
I mean, how many carries does Dalvin get?
18 to 20. 18.
I mean, if you just flipped Kubiak and Kellen Moore, right? Like, just what if you took Kellen Moore and you put him in the Vikings as the Vikings OC? Like, would it still be the number 1 offense? Would he? Yeah, like to Judd's point, would Dalvin still be getting 28 touches a game?
But it starts with the head coach. I mean, it'd have to be. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If it was carte blanche, okay, Clint, do whatever you want. I'm not gonna. Okay. I'm gonna turn the mic off. How many? You run it how you want. I don't know. I don't think it would be. It would be 30 carries. Would it be 18? I don't know. But it would. I think it would be. We're starting with the pass and then we'll do the run.
All right, Chip. Sean McVay tomorrow is traded to the Vikings for Zimmer, who goes to the Rams. Sean McVay is in charge here. He knows Kirk. He's got the exact same personnel and an offensive line that probably at worst as a whole is average. Like probably at worst they're average. They're not great.
At worst, I don't know. Yeah.
Bradbury's a mess. So, but I'm saying
you mean at best average,
or at best. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
at best,
yeah.
Yes. Sean McVay is in charge. What does this offense look like starting Sunday night?
Yeah, I think what you said before. It's heavy pass, much fewer runs, just really trusting the quarterback and the wide receivers to be the focal point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
if this was done with a lot of thought too, so like let's say that the emphasis with this franchise right now was put on the offensive side of the ball. Think about this too. Dalvin Cook would be the perfect guy to make Justin Jefferson. So Dalvin Cook, the threat, play action, the potential for West Coast plays. The star player would be Jefferson, and Cook would play a great supporting, incredibly important role. Because Justin Jefferson should probably be targeted for 2 to 3 shots per game.
Yeah, and you don't think Dalvin. So there's how many running backs in the league where you say that every coach would be like, this guy needs, if not the focal point, he has to have a high workload. Derrick Henry, Dalvin. There's probably 4, 5.
Well, yeah, and a lot of them get hurt more, so they're gone. Like Saquon.
Yeah.
Zeke now has a partner, which I actually like. And
Pollard's averaging 6 yards a carry.
Well, but that gets to a really interesting discussion. How many guys, with what you just said, how many guys exist like that in today's league, but simply are not used like that because it's not how the game works now?
I would put Dalvin in the special category. Obviously, Derrick Henry's in the special category. How many guys would you put in the special? I mean, it can't be 10 of them because there's then it would be special. I would say 3 or 4, maybe.
I mean, Zeke was there,
Zeke was.
and now he's not. Barkley was going in that direction, and now he's not because he's been hurt so much. But I do contend that there are guys who, if they were just used more, probably might go to that, but they're not used like that because it's
that's
not
a good point.
really common in today's game. Which, look, if Sean McVay took over the Vikings tomorrow, Alexander Mattison would play more, and it might help Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. How much of this too? Like we always hear, Zimmer talk about Dalvin's competitor, and I'm sure he's on the sideline saying, "I want to stay in. I'm getting warmed up," that type thing. And
yeah, but
you trust that he's, and especially if he's, you look. What do you have against Carolina? 140 yards rushing on a bad leg.
Yes.
So it's it's hard to take that guy out, But it's I still, in saying all that, because I think Dalvin's just really, really talented, but I still would do the throw to try to open up him versus the other way around, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I also think in a lot of offensive schemes today, Dalvin would catch more passes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So I think he'd be used, but he would be used in different ways.
Yeah.
But Jefferson, as I watched that Bengals game, Chip, on Sunday, I kept saying to myself, as good. I mean, and JJ stats are good. So don't get me wrong. He's I'm not saying he's not used. That's false to say that. But when I watched how Jamar Chase was being used, if I'm Jefferson, I'm jealous. That's how he should be used.
It's funny, Judge. Sometimes I sit up in the press box and there'll be stretches where, what was it? Detroit, where Jefferson had 6-7 catches in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there and sometimes I'll think, I would throw it to him every play, literally every play, throw it to Jefferson. And I know it's not that simple. It's a lot more complicated than that, but it's I kind of look at it as I don't think you could throw it to that guy enough. There's no number of targets that are enough for him because I think he's that good and that dynamic and that he just can get open. Correct. And he can make plays. And so, yeah, I mean, I would, and again, it's not this simple, but I would throw it until they stopped him, and keep throwing it.
Right. And I wouldn't allow them to dictate. So I wouldn't say, well, they rolled coverage or they went to cover 2 or 2 high safeties. And so now he's done.
Yeah.
I would literally do what you just said and say, stop him. And then if you stop him, I'm going to alter my plan again. That's the thing is, as cliche as this might be, imposing your will and in-game adjustments in the sport are absolutely crucial. And that's what you have to do. But you also then, to go back to Kirk, you have to trust Kirk to make the throws that he can make, but are risky. And if Kirk post-by throws more picks, I'm not talking dumb picks, I'm not talking panic picks, but if he takes some shots for just
aggressive picks,
and they get picked off, I am not going to complain at Kirk one bit because that's what you need to do in today's league, I think, to win some games.
Yeah, and some of that is on him, right? There was a couple of weeks ago where he did the stat where he was way down the list, lower 20s in yards per or air yards per attempt. So he wasn't really throwing the ball down. So it's on him. It's on Kubiak to scheme it, but then on Kirk too to say, you know what, I might make a mistake. I might throw a pick, but the risk reward is high because you feel like Jefferson's going to win a lot of the time, and so if you happen to throw 3 more picks over 6 games,
correct,
live with it because you're probably going to get big plays that you wouldn't get playing it safe. So I think it's both ways. And I agree with you. It kind of drives me crazy. You're like, well, they went to 2 high safety. We couldn't throw. I was like, scheme it open. I mean, how many teams run 2 high safeties in the NFL? And you can't just throw your arms up and say, well, we can't do anything against that.
A ton. And there is plenty of examples of teams saying you're playing too high. We're going to do something slightly different. And Justin Jefferson flat out catches passes at times when covered. And Kirk can throw to guys like This is the National Football League. This ain't Friday night high school football. Guys can make those throws. Kirk can, and Jefferson can catch them. So yeah.
Or get the pass interference, which
amen.
That's
those
are big plays
right. That's exactly right. Prediction for Sunday. What do you think? A lot of people are very afraid of this game. And by that, I mean our viewers and listeners keep saying they're terrified of this game. But what do you think?
Yeah, this is a hard one. I wish I knew if Pierce was playing, because I think the line of scrimmage is going to determine this game. If the Vikings defensive line can hold up and stop the run, I think they limit the run, not stop it, but don't let them go crazy on you. I think they have a really good chance to win. If Dallas is able to establish the run, I think they're going to win. That's a chicken way out of not making a prediction, but I think I'll do Cowboys in a close one until I know if Pierce is playing. I feel better about them stopping the run.
Dex, what do you think?
I kind of think this is going to be a really, really fun shootout game. I know Dak's a little hobbled, but I still think he's Dak Prescott and he's still a damn good quarterback. I think the Vikings do get a win here. I think they get a spooky win, pun intended, on Halloween. And I will go 28-24 Vikes.
I think it's going to be in the 30s.
I think if it's not, the Vikings are in trouble.
If it's not in the 30s?
Yes, I think they need to get it up there. I think they need to outscore them. I think that they
need to
outscore them at home.
They need a shootout. Yeah.
Yep. And Dex is right. The Dak calf, which I'm guessing he'll certainly start, but that's going to slow him a bit. And so if that pass rush can apply pressure and the secondary can hold up at all, but I still think that they're going to give up points. So yeah, I'm going something like 32 for the Vikings. Like, I think you're going to need to score. If you go there saying we're going to just stop them, I don't know if that's possible. So, but yeah, I think the Vikings win here. I really do.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think with the Vikings secondary, that's a tall ask for those guys, that wide receiver court. So I think they're going to be a shootout, and I could see it going either way. I honestly could. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. But I do think to me, the Vikings defense line is the key. They have to have a huge game. Otherwise, if they lose their matchup, it's going to be really hard for that defense, because if they're not getting pressure on Dak and he can't move around, then you're going to hang that secondary out to dry.
And yeah, stop the run too. Just for
that's it. Yeah,
stop the bleep and run.
Well, Andre Patterson said that the other day. He said if they can run it when they want and pass it when they want, we're in trouble.
Yeah, but I'm the thing that drives me crazy now is it's not the big gains. It's like every time 4 yards here, 3 yards,
7 yards. Yeah.
Bring back the Williams bleep and wall. And so you run into it and you don't get a yard, that's what I'm
second 10. It's second and 10. Yeah.
Second 10, not second and 4. And now you run again. And now it drives me crazy. All right, Chip Scoggins, happy 50th.
Thank you.
Celebrate with plenty of Surly Furiouses. I know that you will. Welcome to the 50 club. Don't be surprised when your back starts to hurt more, your knees hurt some more, all of that good stuff. Talk to you next week, brother. And
Thank
have a
you.
great one. Okay.
Appreciate it, bro. See ya.
See ya.